Welcome to today's episode of Women on Top. Lizzie Chapman is the CEO and co-founder of ZestMoney, a company that leverages mobile technology, digital banking, and artificial intelligence to make life more affordable for millions of Indian consumers. Lizzie has been consistently driving the adoption of digital finance and championing the concept. ZestMoney was also selected as a 2020 technology pioneer by the World Economic Forum. She currently serves on the boards of India Mart, which is India's Alibaba, and India Quotient, an early stage investment fund. She's also a founding member of the Digital Lending Association of India and serves on its executive committee. She recently bagged the top honors in the Woman Ahead category of the Economic Times Startup Awards 2021. Congratulations, Lizzie, and thank you for making the time today.
Thank you.
So listen, you began your career working in Goldman Sachs and then went on to entrepreneurship, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more later because it didn't start with the fintech industry as far as I know. But tell me how working in an investment bank impacted you as a professional to start with.
Good question. And I know you have a somewhat traditional background as well, traditional in the financial sense. So I didn't know anything about money when I was growing up. I grew up in a very kind of artsy family. I remember when I started at Goldman and I said to someone, I don't think I know what the word interest rate means, because it just wasn't part of my growing up. So I got lured by the excitement of something I didn't understand. And I think that's driven a lot of what I've done in life, right? I am very curious. I always want to be learning new things. And I think working in a place like Goldman Sachs is one of the best opportunities for someone who doesn't really know what they want to do, but is very ambitious and very curious. So I started out there just because I was really fascinated by money. And then the more I learned about money, the more I realized how badly designed, the world systems are. And I think sometimes, and I talk about this in the India context, I think sometimes when you come at a problem statement with no baggage and no background information, you can have clearer perceptions, right? So I suddenly sort of realized that there could be better ways of doing financial services. And my job at Goldman, by the way, was to study banks, global banks, and research them and analyze them and write reports about them. So I got a kind of bird's eye view or a ringside seat onto how banks work, and made a sort of wish list of things I would do better. And so that leads to where the interest of fintech came from. And I got really fascinated by how you could use technology to make banks better. And it felt like at the time that was a very, exciting but nascent area. And then over time, that's kind of exploded. So it was a good call in the long run. Yeah.
No, for sure. And I totally agree with you on coming at something, without any background in a way, because it really is about what you want to do without having the sort of, following the formal, the program that you should in a way. It's about what, we came into hospitality in the same way, without any background. But speaking of hospitality, I know that that's where I first met you actually as a fellow hospitality professional, before you sort of made this uber successful fintech venture. So you were leading a boutique hotel venture, and tell us a little bit about that version before the world of fintech, and of course what led you to take that plunge finally into entrepreneurship.
It's funny. It's not that random, but it does sound like it when you put it like that. So I'd actually come out to India as an expat, working for a startup in London, in fintech. So that was quite normal. And I had this really nice apartment and I had this really nice life, and I absolutely fell in love with living and working in Mumbai. But what happened is a lot of visitors would come and stay, and they'd always stay in either like a 5-star hotel and then tell me, ooh, that was a bit boring and plasticky, or they'd stay in like a local guest house which had blood on the sheets and rats running around. And so they always wanted to end up staying in my house, and I was like, this is ridiculous. Why are there no mid-priced good quality boutique hotels? And I was traveling all over India at that time, and you'll know in places like Kochi and obviously Rajasthan. There's some amazing, very authentic F&B experiences. And so honestly, it was more just a constant, frustration about why isn't anyone doing this? So maybe I'm a control freak, but I wanted to kind of fix a problem that I saw, which is actually the same in fintech. Also at the same time, and this is a bit of a boring part of the story, the fintech company in the UK was shutting down and they needed to pay me to stay on in India and help them unwind the company. But it was important that I didn't work in a competing company. So they asked if I could fill my time doing something completely different to fintech. So when that opportunity, but how often do you get a year of your life where someone says, we'll pay you to do something completely different? That was the time to start. And it was just perfect coincidence. I met my co-founder, Abby, who I think you know, and there was a really good opportunity on a property that was exactly what I had imagined. So I think, yeah, the timing was everything, the stars aligned. And it turned out to be one of the best experiences of my life. And I'm going to tell you this, I can say working in hospitality in India is 100 times harder than anything else I've done in my life. It's so hard. And that's
I can back you up on that one.
It's insane. And it looks so simple from the outside, but to do it well and to do it consistently and to maintain that, what we call in technology user experience is so hard in the real world of hospitality. And so it was a baptism of fire on, doing business, understanding consumers, all these skills, working with local regulation, etc. Skills that have helped me build my business now. So one of the best experiences of my life.
Amazing. I mean, that was very brave of you to do on your gap year in a way. But and then you went on to co-found ZestMoney in 2015, right? And at that point, as far as I know, with my limited understanding of the fintech ecosystem, it was far smaller to what it is now, at least in India. So what made you take this sort of bet on fintech in India, and especially as sort of an outsider, in this country?
Yeah, no, a bit like the hotel. It was a constant questioning of why has no one done this? This is so obvious. So I'd seen something that I couldn't unsee. That's how I sometimes describe it, and it became an obsession. Basically, at that time, if you remember, Jio had launched. Internet data was becoming so available, so cheap. Smartphones were getting cheaper and cheaper. You also had an explosion in digital commerce. So, Flipkart, Make My Trip, Paytm, these companies began and were really exploding. So it was like this digital consumer was expecting more from life, right? Had greater aspirations than ever before. And there were more digital consumers coming online faster than had ever happened in history, in the world. So it's this a really amazing kind of time in history. At the same time, banks and financial institutions were not really taking it seriously. And I could still see that from my network and experiences. And I've been doing some voluntary work with, things like around UPI and India Stack. And so I could see that the infrastructure and the opportunity was amazing, but very few people were building on top of that. The specific problem we decided to solve in fintech is one of affordability. And what we observed was, there were all these amazing products being sold online, or holidays to Goa, or lovely new laptops and smartphones, but people's incomes hadn't changed dramatically, right? So, the average income of one of our customers is the equivalent of, say, £250 or $300, but the products they want to buy cost a lot more than that. And at the same time, we have a credit card penetration that's one of the lowest in the world. Less than 30 million people regularly use a credit card in India, which is insane if you think about it, because 500 million people use WhatsApp every day. So it's not about, digital savviness. We believe that credit cards are the wrong product for India, and most consumers in this country would prefer not to use a credit card. So that was the opportunity. We said, how can we make the products more affordable by working with the brands, the e-commerce companies, the travel companies, and how can we get them to pay the cost of credit so that we can get more people into the financial ecosystem. And that's exactly what we said about doing. No one had really done it at that time. There were some traditional offline companies that had done it, NBFCs, but we wanted to use technology. So that was why. And then we brought across some of our technology in our team from London, from that previous fintech. And it was just, yeah, it was just really good timing. India was booming, so they were excited to come back to India. And it just, yeah, again, the stars aligned. Good timing.
Yeah. So I'm a little sort of, tech challenged in multiple ways.
Yeah.
And I want to kind of break this down and ask you a bit more. So I understand about the credit card usage being low here, because I think it's always been seen as a sort of bad thing to do. It's like going down the rabbit hole, and then,
exactly.
it's just, it's not something that you want to get started on, which I completely disagree with, and I think that it can be used really smartly.
Yeah, if you're smart.
But yes, you kind of have to be aware of how to manage your credit card. But is what you're doing? So you just to sort of make it clear for everyone, your whole idea is buy now, pay later, and that's the sort of fundamental the product offering of ZestMoney. So how is this different from EMIs? Can you just explain that? Because that is something that we read all the time, especially when it comes to consumer products, and that's the biggest sell is EMI cars, electronic goods, etc. So can you explain how it's different from that?
Actually, it's not. There you go, shocker. It's kind of the same thing. So EMI means equal monthly installment, and exactly as you said, it's the way of buying an expensive product over a few months by splitting the cost. That is actually something that's existed in India for many, many years. It's actually more socially understood, acceptable, culturally understood than credit card, to your point. We almost think it's a made in India concept, because years ago, even small retailers would offer credit to their customers in that way. And even in your industry, I think it's fair to say even wholesale credit is offered in that way, pay over time. What's funny is a few years ago, some Western companies invented this, buzzword, buy now, pay later, which is basically EMI. What they've done is make it more digital, much more tech enabled, and we can talk about that, but also because of the technology, brought the ticket size down. So even now a lipstick could effectively be bought on EMI, but we don't say buy a lipstick on EMI because that sounds a bit weird. So we say buy a lipstick, buy now, pay later. The biggest difference, however, that determines, I would say, a BNPL versus one offered by like a traditional bank or a traditional credit company is one of transparency and no hidden fees. Because what we've learned is all over the world, including in India, consumers are very, very savvy now and very cynical, as they should be, about the idea of hidden costs, hidden fees, hidden charges. So those EMI schemes you see in the shop will always say, no cost EMI, zero cost. And then there'll be this small print with like, oh, but you have to pay 499 rupees to change your bank account or whatever. And that's what we're trying to kind of rally against. We want credit to be completely transparent, completely honest in the way that we deliver it. And we also want it to be much lower cost. You shouldn't have to pay all those high fees if the product is delivered digitally, like UPI. So we try and work with the ecosystem, with the e-commerce company to bring down the cost to offer it. And of course, we don't have any branches and we have very few people. So the costs are much, much lower. So typically a buy now, pay later scheme will be much cheaper and again, much more transparent than a traditional EMI.
So what you're saying is that the fact that you're a digitally based product is what's really being used to your advantage in terms of the cost saving.
Totally.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from the time you started in 2015, now sort of 6 years later, of course, with the last year and a half going completely digitally, mental, how have you seen an evolution on the usage of your product in the last 6 years?
Yeah, no, it's incredible. It's just been like someone said this morning, things happen very, very slowly and then they suddenly happen very fast. And that's exactly what the journey has been like. I think the first 4 years were quite frustrating. It was slow, and we had to spend our life educating the market. I spent many hours of my life that I'll never get back trying to educate, banks and retailers and NBFCs about this new concept. But then suddenly in the last 18 months, we have a problem of plenty. I don't even have time to meet all the clients because we just have so much demand. I think what happened is a combination of, UPI, which was anyway rolling out, and then the physical implications of the pandemic came together to sort of push a lot of customers that were previously a bit nervous about digital. And I mean specifically digital money, because doing WhatsApp or watching YouTube is one thing, but the minute money gets involved, it becomes very emotional, quite scary. And even the most digitally savvy customers would, prefer to go back to cash. I'm sure you see that, right? Cash is still king for a lot of consumers. So the pandemic was just a great catalyst to get those more nervous customers over the hurdle of, let me try a digital financial product. And now, the sky is the limit, because what's happened is banks have seen that and changed the way they operate. You've had, this influx of these amazing apps like Google Pay, Phone Pay, that are incentivizing that behavior shift. And so it's like an unstoppable, force now that's just growing faster and faster every month. We saw 5x growth year on year. So this Diwali, we're going to be 5x stronger than the year before. That's like unheard of. And that's nothing we've done. That's completely organic. So I guess it's a good learning, but being in the right place at the right time is one of the tricks of success in any business. But sometimes you have to be patient and wait for that timing to play out.
So, that's amazing on the numbers, the growth, but across the globe, very few BNPL firms are actually making profits. How have you cracked the business model?
That you've done your research, Gauri. That's the kind of dirty little secret of not just BNPL, of tech in general. Yes, it is a bit of a conundrum, even to us. How can you be processing billions of dollars of volume and not be making any money? We don't believe that this should be a loss-making business. That's not sustainable, especially anything in financial services has to have a sustainable business model, in our opinion. That's probably a bit old-fashioned, but we've always felt like that. We're all ex-bankers or have worked in banking, and we know that there'll be cycles where unprofitable businesses are popular and fashionable with investors, but it's not going to be a sustainable business model. The good news is, in India, we found, because there are so many brands and retail chains and e-commerce companies that are desperate to get consumers shopping, it's very easy for us to make revenue from them. So we always prefer to price the most revenue towards the brands that we work with, not the consumer. We want to keep the pricing extremely low for the consumer, but we've had great success of doing that, and especially over the last 18 months, because brands are actually very excited. They're also seeing this growth in digital consumption, and they want to enable their customers to participate. So the truth of our business model is we get paid by people like Apple or Samsung or Reliance to operate alongside them. And we think that that is a very sustainable business model. As long as they're still continuing to operate and believe in India, then we will always make decent economics. The biggest cost in our business, of course, is whether our customers choose to pay us back or not. And that's also something that we have spent such a long time perfecting, going deep into that problem statement. And that improves every single year, every single month. And the more we can improve our skill set of getting our money back, the more money we make bottom line, and that will make us sustainable. So we're nearly there. We're actually sort of break even right now. And that's a good place to be in technology these days. Not many people can say that.
That's amazing. So obviously the India story has a lot to do with why it's different from what's happening in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
But where, you obviously had your finger on the pulse since you started working. So where do you see the biggest opportunity for disruption in the future?
Oh my God, that's so exciting. The obvious thing to say is is crypto, but I think that's getting a bit like overdone now. But I do think we have to start thinking about how we apply what's called decentralized finance to all industries. So, it's one thing to understand that the internet and technology will change everything, but we're now at a level, I would say, in the world of thinking, who governs the internet? Who owns the internet? Who owns the customer? And so I think the biggest disruptions are going to come in the next few years as we put ownership back into the customer's hands, not the big tech company or governments. So that's where I see a lot of exciting things happening. There's a really, really cool thing happening in India that not enough people know about, called the Account Aggregator Program. And this is actually being built by a government-backed coalition of banks. And what it will do is create an open architecture system, a technology platform, where you and me have access to all our transaction data that we've ever created across all financial instruments, bank accounts, wallets, everything. And we can access that data as if it's like our KYC and share it with anyone we want so that we own that data. This is a game-changing concept because in the rest of the world, the reason why a Facebook is so valuable is because they own your data.
Yeah.
The Indian regulators are kind of saying the opposite. Actually, the consumer should own their own data and choose to give it to the tech company. And I think that's a really game-changing kind of bold concept. And if we can pull that off in India, it will change the path of technology and the digital economy, because people keep talking about, data is the new oil. Well, I want the consumer to have access to that oil, not a big tech company. So I think India is a really exciting place to be right now in technology from a regulatory and sort of policy perspective, as well as just the innovation that we're seeing.
Well, we're starting to see, just speaking of data, which is, so integral to everything, even in our business, where deliveries are, when crazy in the last 18 months, and we've been had this big battle with the aggregators over data, right? But you're kind of seeing a very slow shift towards, because with the privacy laws changing and you having to now overtly give permission to use your data. But yes, we're still a long way away from actually having ownership of it, which
correct.
And also understanding for the average consumer to understand what's happening.
Yes, we need a lot more education. Agree.
Exactly.
And I think that's the duty of all of us as citizens. We can't leave it in the hands of the government. We have to educate ourselves, educate people, and make sure that people understand that they are in control, and that consent to data sharing is very, very critical, because a lot of wealth has been built, to your point, including the aggregators, on the back of data that they basically took from us, right? And I think we, as consumers, need to kind of bring that power shift back, but it does require a mass awareness and education initiative. Agreed.
Exactly. So what is, this all sounds very exciting, but tell me some of the things that frustrate you about your industry or your business.
Oh God, where to start? No, I'm an optimist, so I try not to think about that. I think there are a couple of challenges. One we've always faced, which is how do we work with the traditional banks and financial institutions? And it's always been tough, because in a way our message to them is, you're doing it wrong, we have a better idea. And I think whenever you go into a partnership with that message, it is challenging. But I would say it's really evolved in the last 18 months, again, thanks to what we've seen and the behaviors that emerged in the pandemic. Banks and traditional financial institutions cannot ignore digital anymore. And so they're much more open-minded, they're much more receptive. But I can still remember meetings, 5 or 6 years ago, where people literally laughed at our face. That was quite difficult to take, because we were so committed to what we were building. I think the other thing it's not talked about enough, but it's becoming a big challenge in India and technology, is people and human capital. And that was actually my biggest challenge in the hospitality industry. It is tough, training and retaining good talent is really hard, but it's now becoming a huge issue in tech, because the world is now hiring from India. We have, I think like 4 million engineers come out of colleges every year, but I think 3.5 million of them get snapped up by big global companies. And so there is a real talent shortage, believe it or not, versus the growth of the industry. And we're really struggling now to compete with these big global companies that just pay lots of money. So we have to hire people for passion and love, and learning, a bit like you probably. And that's great because we have a really lovely culture and it's very mission driven, but it's a constant effort and it's a lot of work. I don't think India has kept up, from an education perspective with the growth that we've seen in technology. And so that's a great opportunity as well. And I think we will catch up over the next few years. But right now, I think the whole industry is struggling with talent. It's tough.
and also, the growing gig economy, right? That's what,
yes. No one wants to work full time. We have this problem. I don't think there is a designer that exists in the country that will work full time anymore. Everyone wants to work part time. Everyone wants to work from Goa. Everybody wants the perfect millennial life. So it's hard. It is hard.
Yeah. So that's definitely, that's a challenge across the board, like you said. Coming to your, you've been uber successful with your fundraising over the years, and you've had several rounds of raising, and you're also on the board of India Quotient. So you're seeing it from both sides. Can you sort of share three things that entrepreneurs going for a raise, say for the first time, should keep in mind based on your experience?
Yeah, no, and actually, I was talking about this weekend. I think, especially as a female, and I hate to say that, but especially as a female, it's really, really, really important how you present yourself in the initial meetings. And what I mean by that is, women typically will be more rational and have more self-doubt than men. And that's actually a proven fact. There's lots of Harvard studies that show that women will underestimate their abilities and competencies and men will overestimate. And that's just the way society brings us up. But in fundraising, that's a problem because it means that you tend to sort of, cut down your answers, cut down your ambition. And that's exactly the wrong thing to do. Any investor, especially in the early stages, is looking for extremely high levels of ambition and conviction. And so I think what we did well, certainly in the early stages, was we sounded audacious, right? We were fresh off the boat from England. We were two women raising money in India. And we said, we're going after a market that's, worth billions of dollars. We're going to have 200 million customers and crazy stuff like that. And that was really valuable because they're like, wow, they're mad, but you've got to be mad to do this. So I'm going to back them. And I think that's really important. When a lot of the time I hear from women pitching and they say, oh, it's a small market today, but I'll grow it. Or I'm only going to do this. I'm not going to do that. And I think, no, you dream big, like be audacious, have the biggest goal you can, because, what's that for? You can shoot for the moon or shoot for the stars and land on the moon. It's really important to have an ambition. So that's probably number one. But then saying that, number two, really important. Be yourself. Don't put on an act. And I think the times when we were unsuccessful with fundraising is when I tried to act like a typical CEO, and I'd watch, videos of like the Uber CEO being really like arrogant and loud, and then I try and replicate that. Of course you can't. I mean, it's just ridiculous. And so I think, just genuine authenticity wins you a lot more respect, a lot more favors. It's also, by the way, my top management tip. I'm sure you would agree. When you are more, authentic and real and bring your whole self to work, your people respect you more, they connect with you more, and that ends up making you a better leader. So I think be very genuine. Don't think that you have to pretend. And then probably the third one is a bit controversial, but I would say do your own sort of checking out of the other person. Do not assume that all money is equal. We have made some mistakes, but we've dodged some mistakes. Taking money from the wrong person, raising money from people you don't respect or don't respect you, is the worst thing you can do. And if I look at many of my friends or people in my industry who have not flourished as well, the biggest baggage they have is investors that have dragged them down. it's really important that you bring on board investors that understand you, understand your business, and really deeply, push you forward rather than question you or second guess you or tell you what to do. And again, as a woman, that's really important because you will get doubted more, you will get questioned more. You need supporters around you, you need cheerleaders around you. You can't have cynics in the room. So that would be my advice. Yes.
Very, very true and very important. I think it's like you said, it's a lot about meeting of minds, right? I mean, whether you're,
Exactly.
as management or as sort of investee relationship. So I think that that's so important.
Yeah.
You touched upon being, you and your co-founder coming into India and being like, I'm gonna take over the world here. What's it like working as a foreigner in India? I mean, I know you're as sort of an Indophile as any of them are, but what's that experience been like? Not just a woman working in India, but a foreign woman working in India. You really kind of you did it all. So
yeah, and then go into an industry that's like completely male dominated. Yeah. So I think that, again, I'm an optimist. I turn negatives into positive. It's been amazing. I mean, first of all, I'm just so grateful. I think I've had a bigger opportunity here than I would have in the UK. I think I'm not exceptional enough in the UK to have done such great things, but for some reason I managed it here. So that speaks to an amazingly supportive ecosystem. No, people are just so wonderful. People are so approachable. I think what's really lovely about India is people are very proud, right? As a nation, we are proud. I certainly feel like that now. I want people to have the best experience when they come to India, and that feeds through even professionally. So people have always been really, really helpful, really supportive. We've not faced any barriers because of that. Maybe the opposite, actually. I think we've had more doors open. I also think, yeah, as I said, a bit of naivety sometimes helps. So you can also, if you do something wrong, you can claim that you didn't know, which is a useful skill.
I don't understand.
I didn't tell you that. And it's silly little things, but like we've made really good friends with the local police force because they're fascinated by me. They think it's really bizarre that there's this English woman doing what we do. So we do lots of charity with them, and they come and have lunch with us, and that's been lovely because they help us out if we need it. So I think generally net this is a great place actually to be a foreigner, as long as you are respectful and contextual and make an effort, and I do as much as I possibly can to kind of fit in and blend in, and I think that's important. But yeah, I can't say it's been a challenge. If anything, I think it's been easier, and I think to some extent the weirdness of my foreignness takes away and makes people forget the gender. So it's probably helped me there as well.
I think you know more people in Bombay than even I do. So, but listen, before I let you go, I want to ask you, any sort of message to startup entrepreneurs, having done it multiple times over in India. What would be your?
Well, I think it's obvious. Having listened to this discussion, anyone would conclude, gosh, if she can do it, anyone can. So really, and I mean it. I mean, I didn't come from any kind of background that would predict this. I don't have I don't even have the right language or context. So I think the fact that that I have built something of value and built a really lovely organization, have given hundreds of people a really nice job, and have done all of that, shows that it really is possible in digital India. I think we are so fortunate. I almost think it's like a modern industrial revolution that's happening right now. It's a historical event, and that's going to create these amazing opportunities for people that have the dream and have the ambition. So if you have an idea, if you have even a glimpse of an idea, please pursue it, because genuinely it has been easier than I would have ever imagined. So
amazing. Well, listen, that's hugely inspiring, and I wish you all the bestest. And don't leave India anytime soon.
No, I can't now. I have a mother-in-law. I'm not allowed.
Listen, thank you so much for making the time, and hopefully see you very, very soon.
Yeah, thank you, Gauri.
Thank you.